Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Well, hello everyone. Not as prepared as I normally am because I haven't been feeling well. I'm not going to give the TMI on this broadcast. Any of you who are on my Facebook wall know what's been going on, and it hasn't been fun. So I basically woke up, threw on some makeup, and ran to do this. So hey, maybe it'll be better when I don't try to plan everything in the program because that always seems to mess things up. But I'm so glad you're here. You've joined me. This is the second bonus episode for May 1972. We already did the political background last time a few days ago. I know for the hey Julian, you're here at the beginning. Yay! So I know you guys who come to each of these are probably getting tired of the intro, but just remember and be patient because some people are joining us for the first time. I'm Karen Ann Harlos. I'm the current secretary, if you're watching this in 2020 through 2022, the current secretary of the National Libertarian Party and the chair of their Historical Preservation Committee, which is, hey D. Frank. Oh boy, I had so many questions for you in past episodes. I see D. Frank is on Facebook. Those of you who do not know, he's one of the OGs. He's one of the founders of the party. We had talked about you quite a bit, and your address was in Oklahoma was actually listed in, I think, 2 or 3 issues ago. And I was wondering, like, how long has it been since you've been there? And just all kinds of trivia like that. Okay, so back to the intro that I was trying to do before I got so distracted. So what we are doing is going through party history through the LP News. So a newsletter that was mailed out to everyone publicly available, not some secret arcane knowledge, but he figured that's a good way to learn history. I'd come up with this when I was thinking, like, if I wanted to learn the history of a town, say, one of the best ways would be to go find the town newsletter, you know, those little newsletters that go out, not the big papers. And you would learn everything. You would learn everything from Mabel's corns to, you know, more important things that happened, though I'm sure the corns were very important to Mabel. So that's what we're doing. We're really doing the grassroots learning. And as we go through each month of LP News, it references other things that I try to track down. Or we just research the general history of what was going on in the country at that time. To that end, I mentioned last episode there was a magazine which D. Frank may know. It was called Win, Peace, and Freedom. And I was having a really hard time finding copies of it. I did find a single copy for September 1972. So when we get to the September issue, we've got some supplements. There are a couple 1973 reasons I tracked down that I'll be getting so that we have them. And though there's something else. Oh, Society for Individual Liberty. I found some of those newsletters. I don't think I found the one that was referenced, though, but we'll soon find out because I picked it up after I tried to, you know, make a bargain. So what we are going to go through today, and just to remind everyone as to where we are at in history, it was this month, May 1972, I think it was May 15th, that Wallace was the victim of an attempted assassination attempt. So that was big on everyone's mind at the time. And what we had planned on doing this episode was, we had read that there was an article in Reason magazine, and I had already started purchasing these old Reasons whenever I could find them, from Mike Holmes. Well, here, Michael E. Holmes, but Mike's still around, you know, and we communicate, probably I said about every quarter, every 3 months or so. But Michael E. Holmes, I should run, there's something else I want to, crap. You guys, you know me. This is by the seat of my pants a little bit. I've got to go to a table that's just right over there. So keep yourselves company while I go get this, because it's relevant to Mike Holmes. Okay, hold on. I think I'm back. Yes, all right. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be, I'm going to make a fool out of myself. This newsletter, and D. Frank can tell me, I believe this was put out by Mike Holmes, American Libertarian. This isn't a Libertarian Party publication. These are things that I've picked up elsewhere, probably on eBay. I don't remember where I got this. And I need to get his permission to put these up on LPedia, though he has made these available on a Libertarian sort of wiki of his own. But do you recall, D. Frank, wasn't this put out by Mike Holmes? I'm looking to see if it says the editor here. I could be getting all jumbled up, but I don't think so. I know I saw the editor. Yep, editor Mike Holmes. Okay, my memory did not fail me. These are in the 80s, though. Yeah, I think he put it out just during the 80s, D. Frank. But anyway, look at the article on the one that I happen to have. Norma Jean jailed. So we'll be getting into all that history. I'm not going to jump the gun, but yeah, these are available publicly. If I can remember, which I never do, I'll try to put the link in the show notes because it's not on LPedia. It's on Mike Holmes's own site. And I'm going to ask Mike Holmes for permission, but he might say, no, well, then why would people come to my site? I don't know, whatever. Okay, so back to this. So we're going to go through this. I'm not going to be putting this up on the screen the way I normally do with everything. I'll put the first page up on the screen, but this is Reason Magazine. I don't own the copyright to it, so I am not going to put the whole thing up on the screen, though I'm more than willing to make photocopies or scan. That's probably more. I'm going to make a mimeograph for you. I'll scan this for anyone who would like it for themselves. As I said, any of these resources that are my private items that I bought that obviously I can't put up on LPDF due to copyright issues, I'm more than happy to give anyone who wants it a copy of it. And as long as it's single pieces, doesn't cost much to mail, you know, I'm not going to charge you for postage or anything like that. If there are items in bulk that you want copies of, we can make an arrangement for a copy service to do it. But anyway, I'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. The idea for me for this stuff is to get it all out in the wild. Now, the other thing we were going to go over, we had read in one of these issues, I think it was the April issue, that there was a piece put out by UPI. And I believe David, who was listening, looked up what UPI was like Universal Press something, kind of like AP. And they are still around. So I said, hey, I'm going to try to find this article that it was an interview with David Nolan. And I couldn't find it anywhere. I went to UPI's website. Their archives only go back 20 years, and this is going back 50 years. So I wrote UPI, as anyone could do. And the reason I keep bringing up as anyone could do, and these items are public and that sort of thing, is because there are some jealous people in this party who are trying to say that I have this secret information that I'm hoarding to myself, and therefore it's unethical for me to have a private show about it, which is just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, so I wrote UPI, and they sent me the article, and then I wrote them back and said, can I have reprint permission? Because I would like to put this up on LPDF for everyone to enjoy. And we did get reprint permission with the stipulation that it was limited reprint. It was just for LPDF. And that there were no ads on that page. And we don't have any ads on LPDF to begin with. The only place there are ads on LPDF is not really LPDF itself. If you use the search function, we use search powered by Google, and Google puts their own ads. No benefit comes to us. That's all a Google thing. That's kind of how, you know, we'll give you our great search feature if you let us put ads type of thing. But on LPDF itself, there are no ads. That would just cause all kinds of problems for FEC reporting and all of that. Anyway, so I will put that on the screen because I do have reprint permission for that. And since I didn't get all the scenes set up ahead of time, I'm going to have to actually manually pull it up. So let me go here and let me pull it up on my screen first, and then I'll do a screen share. This is a great interview, and I'm like so happy that I thought of writing them and getting it, because this would have been something lost to history. And now it's up on LPDF for everyone to enjoy. Oh, I don't need to actually pull it up. I downloaded the PDF. So give me a moment. You all get to learn as I learn. What I need to do is put it up on the screen here. Let's see. This should do it. Yes, it does. So let me move it away from my face here. Oh, I think I could do like a screen and screen thing if I do this. One sec. I'm still learning this program, though I'm getting much better, and I'm like so impressed at this program. Okay. If I do that. Yeah, but then you get to see my little folder here, but let me close that folder. And again, I don't have any of my lesbian midget porn on this computer, so I don't really care that you see it, but it's not as pretty. Here we go. Let me put this a little bit to the side. Let me move myself up a little bit bigger. Okay, here we go. And I'm just looking over, and I like looking at the chat because I like interacting with everyone. What is Libertacios Hispanos? I don't know what that is. So I'll just keep, you can let me know, and I'll keep that chat in there. Alrighty. One thing I do want to do here, I'm trying to think of the best, I'm going to do it on the screen. I'm sorry that I hadn't been as prepared as I normally am. This gives you guys a chance to peruse it while I'm doing this, because I can't read it myself conveniently over there. So I've got like a million computers here, and I'm going to pull it up on my computer here. What's the name of the article? Document, David Nolan forms Libertarian Party. Okay. This is a good chance while you guys are waiting for you to sign up to LPedia. Okay, let's go through this. It is so fantastic. So Westminster, Colorado. It's interesting that the interview was done in Westminster because, no, never mind, I had it confused. He does live in Westminster. I keep getting that in Colorado Springs confused. So this would be at his home. One moment. I need to take a sip. Hello, Susan, and thank you. Okay, so Westminster, Colorado, UPI. David F. Nolan, and it's funny in all his official things, he did use the middle initial all the time. I don't know what that stands for. I'm assuming if we're going to do our best guess would be Frank. Maybe D. Frank knows. Okay. So, David F. Nolan, it's not the government's business to make a motorcyclist wear a helmet. A man has an inalienable right to bash in his own head. If he chooses, but not the head of his neighbor. Now, here's what's funny, not funny about this. And I'll say this to D. Frank, you need to watch the last few interviews that I did. I just did one with Late to Liberty, and then on Monday I did one with Roads to Liberty, where I was just going off on mostly about the National Party's silence on the lockdowns, which is the biggest civil rights violation in peacetime in this country's history, as far as I'm concerned. Now, this simple statement that David just said about wearing a helmet, that a man has an inalienable right to bash in his own head. Do you picture anyone in national leadership officially saying anything like that today? I don't. Now, unofficially, people like me will say all kinds of things, but I'm not speaking for the party, I'm speaking for myself. So Nolan wants to build a political party on that premise. The 28-year-old, wow, he was 28. D. Frank, how old were you at that time? If you could stick it in chat, I would love to know. But if you don't want to, because, you know, you should never ask people their age, I will, not bug you about it. But so the 28-year-old sales representative for a computer services firm is acting chairman of the Libertarian Party, which officially announced its formation in late January in Denver. I thought it announced its formation in December of 71. Okay, so D. Frank was 29. You guys were a bunch of raring young men there. So UPI has that wrong. It was announced in December of 71, not January of 72. Anyway, which officially announced its formation in late January in Denver. It is headquartered in this Denver suburb. And yes, Westminster is a suburb of Denver on the northern end, where those of you who aren't familiar with Colorado geography, oh, D. Frank, man, you guys got me so confused. I think I have it here, but one second, let me, after the end of this article, D. Frank, remind me, I don't want to sideline this article, but I do have a question for you. So Colorado Springs is south, and that's where Luke Zell and all of them were. So here's a little oh, no, I didn't get there yet. Nolan and many of his party's members are former young Republican activists for whom President Nixon's dramatic economic controls and overtures to the communist government of China were the last straw. From what I understand, the whole gold issue and eliminating I'm sure D. Frank could let us more about that, but all the controversies that were going on with the gold standard were a big impetus, as well as the Vietnam War. So David said, "We no longer believe the Republican Party can be salvaged as a vehicle for espousing the point of view of minimal government." And that certainly has not changed in the 50 years. And the fools who still think the Republican Party can be salvaged are still around. Little subtitle, "He admires Ashbrook." Nolan expressed some admiration for Ohio Rep. John Ashbrook, a conservative who is challenging President Nixon for the 1972 Republican nomination. But Ashbrook doesn't have a snowflake's chance in hell of winning, Nolan said. And when Richard Nixon is renominated, he, Ashbrook, will fall back in line. We've been going along a lot in past bonus episodes. I encourage everyone to go back and listen to those about all the political maneuverings of that time that were also going on in the Democratic and Republican parties, because it's important to what we're looking at here. The Libertarian Party will not fall back in line, according to Nolan. It plans to run candidates for president and vice president and hopes to be on the ballot in at least 10 states. It will try write-in drives in the other states. I see there was a weird stray character there when I copied this over. I'll have to fix that. But you know something interesting here? I know I always go off on all the grammar stuff, but was it the style at the time to capitalize president and not capitalize vice president? Because if you see that in here, that's how they did it with UPI. Interesting. We don't feel any of the major parties offer any real hope. Occasionally you get a Goldwater, but usually you get a Humphrey or a Nixon who will promise anything to win. A lesson for the GOP. Nolan said he was indifferent to the prospect that his party might draw votes away from Nixon and indirectly help the Democrats. Funny, the same thing. The spoiler, you're stealing our votes. And Susan had a very interesting comment that we'll use as fodder for discussion after this article, which is why I really like when you guys participate in chat, because then it makes it a conversation, which is what I want this to be, a conversation, because anyone could just read off an article. You could get a computer voice to do that. I want to suss it out and come to our own conclusions. He says maybe it will teach the GOP a lesson. The party claims 250 members and hopes for 10,000 by election day. And as we saw, what was the date of this interview? Oh, I didn't put the date in here. But you can see down here in the link for the UPI archives, it was April 2nd. I'm going to need to put that up at the top. And they were well on their way. Because we were in May. In a month, they got a lot more members. I forgot what the factor of multiplication was. It has divided the United States into 8 geographical regions and has organizers in each. Those of you who are familiar with the way we do regions now, it was not how they did it then. And some people want to go back to this old system, and it always perturbs me, perhaps might be the right word, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so interested in the history, is before you go back to something that we did before, why don't you try to find out why we stopped doing it? Because there probably was a reason. Just an idea. Don't want to keep repeating things that might have been mistakes. And maybe if you wanted to go back to that system, it can be modified in a way that whatever reasons we abandoned it are not the issue. I can tell you what I think is the issue. At that time, they had 8 geographical regions that were hard set, like X state, and X state were all in region 1, and so on and so forth. Well, just because you're close to each other geographically does not mean you make for a good region. And your regional representative has to represent the interests of the states, which obviously then is kind of a collective. And if those states are very different from each other, temperamentally, ideologically, or whatever it might be, that regional representative is not going to be able to represent them. And I remember when I had this conversation with New Mexico when I was Region 1. New Mexico wanted to join Region 1. And I did advise them it might not be the best thing for New Mexico, because Region 1 was a very radical region at that time. And New Mexico is a very more moderate pragmatist state. And I didn't want them to feel like they were not getting good representation because they would be outnumbered. Now, I don't know if Region 1 is still that way, but they said no, they'd rather deal with being outnumbered with other states that were about their own size than join a region with California, where California really just dominated because they have enough to have a region all of their own. They don't have to kowtow to anyone else. And this isn't a criticism, because I'd think the same thing if I was in California. So I think that problem is insurmountable. I like the system that we have now. I would actually like to get rid of at-larges and have more regions, but that's a whole other thing. It's fine the way it is. You don't need to keep tinkering with things. Nolan makes the point that the Libertarian Party is different from many other small splinter groups in that his philosophy of minimal government interference cuts across standard ideological divisions. Many of the party activists are not disaffected conservatives, he said, but former liberals and new leftists. I think Carl Bray would fall into that. And I will be getting to everyone's comments. If I keep looking at them, I'll get so distracted. We hope to demonstrate the moral bankruptcy of both liberalism and conservatism, he said. The party's temporary platform includes such items as respect for property rights, advocacy of a laissez-faire economy, opposition to government subsidies, and upholding the right to bear arms. And then there is that strong advocacy of the right to crack your own skull. Fantastic. I did an episode going through the temporary platform if anyone is interested in that. Next subtitle, Right to Die. Imagine, Nolan said, the government outlaws riding a motorcycle without a helmet. It's all right to have a law requiring good brakes, because if you can't stop your car, you could hurt someone else. But a motorcyclist can only bash in his own head by not wearing a helmet. If he wants to run the risk to feel the wind in his hair, that's his right. And the article ends with a little pun. It's a heady thought, all right? Okay. So now we're going to go a bit to the comments and that other item I said I wanted to go over with D. Frank. Now I just got to figure out how to pull these comments up on my screen. Did I remember the shortcut key? I did not, so I am going to need to do it from the menu. I need to learn these shortcut keys. So, window. I did that shortcut key and it didn't work. Okay, well, no crying over it. It worked now. Alrighty. So let me scroll up here and go first come, first serve. So we have Susan. Oh, let me close this overlay where it's hiding your comments, Susan. We don't want that. Here we go. Susan Cummings says, the Republicans cannot be salvaged, but in parts of the state and in different states it can be taken over. Can it, though? I'd love to hear what other people think about this. Because we saw what happened with Ron Paul. They took over certain segments, but ultimately it didn't get them anywhere. I want to put that back up. It automatically kind of disappears after a certain amount of time. You know, maybe if you're saying, you know, you can win office as a Republican in certain localities, yeah, that's certainly true. But what you're doing is adding to the war chest and gravitas of the National Republican Party, which is not a friend of freedom right now. So I guess it depends on what perspective you're coming from. But I don't think you can ever truly take it over in any particular state or locality, because you're always going to be under the thumb of a national party that works to destroy the Libertarian Party, for one thing, but works to destroy liberty in a much bigger sense. And I don't want to have me all small here. Let me figure out if I know how to fix that. Yay! Okay, another sip here. When it gets so cold here, it just snowed the other day, and we all have our heaters on. It gets so dry in these houses. You have like perpetual cotton mouth. Alrighty, here's D. Frank. Okay, that's an interesting thing. So the regions were established as ad hoc, and the intent was the states would align to suit themselves later. I wonder, is there any documentation on that? D. Frank? Because I would love to have that in my hip pocket as people keep bringing up the idea. Francis Went, for instance, if I'm remembering correctly, is a big advocate of having the states hard, the regions hard coded, and I'm not a fan. I don't see that working out. So yeah, so that's interesting. I hope that's documented somewhere that was never thought to be like such a great idea. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Julian, is he running as... I didn't know he was running as a Republican. I was just on his show. He's got a really good podcast, The Black Side of Liberty. And I didn't know if he was running as a Republican. I wonder why he chose to do that, particularly since the Republican Party doesn't have much power in California, and they have top two. So that a lot of times there's just two Democrats in a race. So I'd be interested in speaking to him. Now, obviously, there's going to be isolated, deviations. Because I obviously am a huge fan of Nicholas Wildstar, and I'm never going to, if that's what he feels is the best ticket for him at that time. But what I'm talking about is general rules. Exceptions do not disprove general rules. Alrighty. Libertarian sympathizers who get elected as Republicans degrade into Republicans, such as my old friend Mickey Edwards. Oh, is that Mickey and Me? Is that the Mickey from Mickey and Me, D. Frank? There's a article on Elpedia that D. Frank gives some of his memories of the early party. But I'll say that's, again, that's probably a good general rule, and we could all point to an exception, right? Ron Paul. I don't think Ron Paul ever turned into a Republican. But... and I know some people will start to wail and gnash their teeth. I do not idolize Ron Paul. I love him. I think he's fantastic. I don't think we should idolize any person. But I can tell you, I do have something to say against Ron Paul. And I can't say I blame him, because a lot of what he did for the sake of his son. And, what parents will do for their children, nobody else is in any position to judge that. But Ron could have done Liberty a huge solid, and the Libertarian Party a huge solid and in his last term, when he didn't have to worry about running again, he changed his registration to Libertarian. I do not know why he would not do that. And I think he felt that it would harm Rand. But I'm kind of, butthurt about that. He could have done us a big solid by doing that, and it would have cost him nothing in my point of view. Okay. Now the other thing, I'm going to see if I can find it here. You were mentioned, D. Frank, I think in the last LP News. And now that you're here, I want to ask you about it. If I can find it. So you guys give me a second as I scan. But I remember going, oh, I wish D. Frank was here. It was talking about, maybe I could just jog your memory without finding the actual quote, where you had went to some kind of training session at his villa in Westminster. Oh, here we go. Oklahoma. I'm going to read this little blurb here. Another fast-growing group is the Oklahoma LP, with about 30 members to date. The Oklahoma crew is engaged and working on a membership drive and working on raising funds to pay for a billboard promoting the LP during the coming campaign. Did you guys buy that billboard, D. Frank? Inquiring minds want to know. And then it also says, Oklahoma LP chairman Frank Robinson, and did you not go by D. Frank at that time? That was another curious I had. Tim Bears and Ron Harris came up to national headquarters, and remember, national headquarters was David Nolan's villa in Westminster, on April 29th for a day-long planning session, and left with a lot of ideas and material. So, I wonder if you remember that, D. Frank. I want to know all about it. I read that and I was like, oh man, to be a fly on the wall. And I just really want to know if you ever were able to buy that billboard. And Susan, if you don't mind me answering for him, yes, he is still in Oklahoma. We had just recently seen each other earlier. God, 2020 has lasted forever. Earlier this year. That's that picture I posted on my wall where D. Frank was planting a kiss on my cheek. Okay, so now we are going to go to, where did I put that Reason magazine? Is this the May one? Yes, here we go. So I think I have a copy of that cover I can put up. Yep, so this is what we're going to be going over here. This article from Michael E. Holmes, The Idea of a Libertarian Party. I had never heard of this article before. If you recall, and I don't know if it was in this episode, I call it issue. I'm going to see if I can find it. No, it was on the one before, where it had said, and I'll have to look up again what magazine it was, but there was a magazine that had opposing editorials, one in favor of the LP and one not in favor of the LP, and I'm dying to get that one. I do have the big article that was in response to David Nolan, and I did a special episode on it, because remember, David wrote the case for a Libertarian Party, and then someone wrote the case against the Libertarian Party, and I was able to purchase that. It cost me a pretty penny, I'll tell you that. And I did do an episode on that. So if you're interested, go look back through go to YouTube. I made a playlist of all the LP history items, so you'd be able to find it quickly. No, it wasn't in this one. It must have been in the April issue, but that's okay. You could go back and listen to that. Alrighty, so let's go to this article. Where is the page? I get so distracted doing this stuff because I'm like, ooh, I want to read that. Ooh, I want to read that. Okay, here we go. So again, due to copyright, I'm only putting the first page up. So I'm going to, Frasier, I had guessed Frank. I'm going to need to put that in Lpedia. For those who aren't here live, D. Frank had just let us know that David's middle name, what the F stands for, was Frasier. David Frasier Nolan. So I'm going to read through all the important parts of this and we'll discuss. Get some more soda. It may be that every paragraph is really important. It might be that I summarize some, but I'll let you know when I'm doing some summarization. Now, interesting, I'm looking at the graphic at the top here because we go through everything. Vivian Kellums for president. I have no idea who Vivian Kellums is. Vote for Friedman. Was that the son or the father? Tanstaffel, we went over that. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Legalize liberty. Another variation of legalize freedom. I actually like legalize liberty better because of the alliteration. Alrighty. I am in a moment. Okay, so here we go. Well, first here it says a little bit about Michael Holmes on the bottom. Holmes is an economics and philosophy major at Rice University. I wonder if he graduated with those degrees. He is currently associated with Hardcore News. Never heard of that. Gonna need to look that up. And the Center for Libertarian Studies in Houston. What was great about this time period, there was all kinds of libertarian think tanks. I believe there was like, in one issue of LP News, I think it said there was like 70 of them. It was crazy. Now, only a few of those have survived to today, one of them being Cato and also the Reason Foundation. All right, now to the article itself. Libertarians, with their basic commitment to voluntary social interaction, by nature find politics and the political process unpalatable at best and dangerous at worst. Ain't that the truth? Sincerely hoping to live in a world with greater human freedom, they're faced with the enormous problem of radically changing the present collectivist, anti-human, socio-intellectual climate. Now, it's interesting. So he's... Dave, what? On Facebook? Thanks. Hop over to YouTube, David. Hop over to YouTube. This is playing... David. Did I say David? D. Frank. Whoever's on Facebook, you can hop over to YouTube. Let me type that in chat. Because if the video is not playing, they won't hear me say that. I've got too many screens, and I keep losing my mouse. Those of you who do multiple screens, if you know how that is. Okay. And I got to remember how I set them up. Yeah, I have to mouse down. Mouse down. Here we go. And the three screens are like widely apart. So let me type this here. If you are on Facebook and the video is glitching, go to YouTube and watch. And YouTube's better for me anyway. That's why I'm pimping YouTube, because I need the view hours. Alrighty. So it's interesting that they started this article with a justification of being involved in politics to begin with, which is probably the right place to start, because libertarians tend to be very politically averse. The problem we have in like, say, Colorado, we've got over 40,000 registered libertarians in Colorado. That's a freaking lot. But you're lucky if you can get 100 of them to a convention. Why? Because at least here in a Western state, we convert them to libertarianism and then they can drop out of the system. Like, they just take it all the way. And we call them and they're like, love everything you're doing, now leave me alone. That's what we have here in Colorado. And I know Mark Montoni didn't believe me with this because he was the affiliate builder extraordinaire in Virginia. And he just thought, we must not be trying. Why don't we have more affiliates here in Colorado? We must not be trying. Now, he's been in Colorado for 2-3 years now, beating his head against the wall, trying to get at least one affiliate formed, the one in his own hometown, and he sees how it is. It's different here. And it's not like we don't have a lot of libertarians. We do. They just don't want to be officially involved. They are just like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. All right. As one of the ways by which to bring about a libertarian society, now various groups of libertarians are working in the traditionally accepted area of local change, politics. The Libertarian Party and the New Jersey-based Citizens for a Restructured Republic are perhaps the best known of these groups. I've never heard of that other group. Maybe D. Frank can give us some intelligence on this. However, all of them face several problems. Among the most important is the problem that since libertarianism is fundamentally anti-political, its political activity will have to be limited to what may be called the politics of the anti-political. Additionally, many libertarians have come to their present position after leaving the sterile contemporary political arena and pseudo-political groups such as Young Americans for Freedom, which served merely to stifle their initiative and blunt their libertarian sentiments. Little sidetrack then. Again, that's why we do it, to do our commentary. This highlighted for me, that I had a little epiphany here reading this. Part of our problem today, and for the past 50 years, is we want to do politics the way the Republicans do, or a certain segment of the party does. And I don't mean their corrupt ways, but their traditional ways. And it forgets that we are at heart anti-political. And until we embrace that, we're always going to have that identity crisis, you know? So that's really, I'm going to incorporate that. I need to, you know, marinate in that a little bit. And it's funny that YAF is mentioned here. Well, not funny. It brought up something to mind. You're going to let me rant here for a moment. I know you guys are going to let me rant here for a moment. That's half the reason why you watch me. Okay. YAF, I don't think is around anymore, but we are all familiar with YAL, which is Young Americans for Liberty. Today, Chris, and I'm forgetting his last name, but the head of Young Americans for Liberty was on the Tom Woods show and talking about their efforts and successes in getting Liberty Republicans elected to lower offices. And then they said not all of them were Republicans. And then they mentioned Marshall Burt. Those of you know, it's right now the highest elected libertarian who was elected as a libertarian because Amash converted. So he actually is the highest sitting libertarian, but he didn't run as a libertarian. Anyway, we all know that Marshall Burt's success is a product of Apollo Pizzell, who's a national staffer, and the Frontier Project. And that, I'm not going to call them names. I'm tempted, but I'm not. That guy took credit for it. Took credit for that win, never mentioned that the Libertarian Party put resources behind it, and the way Apollo kicked ass. I am so salty about this, but because, you know, we don't want to have bad relations with these groups, I'm not going to go off. But dude, that was uncool. That is stolen valor right there. Okay, back to the article. New subtitle, Anti-Politics. Criticism of libertarian political activity has come from many quarters, most recently from Don Ernstberger, director of the Society for Individual Liberty, CSIL News, December 71. That must be the one where it has the opposing... the opposing editorials. Now I've narrowed it down. I've got to find that SIL News. Any of the SIL Newses from this time period would be fantastic. Some of the arguments he advanced were A, political changes stem from socio-intellectual change, not vice versa. I don't disagree, but that doesn't, well, anyway, this isn't for me to argue with this guy, but it's not as if the two are mutually exclusive. B, political activities attract only superficial supporters. Oh, really? I think my husband would beg to differ with you that it had made me a superficial supporter. I think he would have been grateful if I was only made a superficial supporter. This frickin' thing has taken over my life. C, education via party politics doesn't work. Oh, really? Don, you're tucking out your ass. And D, the basic premises of party politics, compromise and consensus, are repugnant to libertarian principles. Not always. Certain kinds definitely are. But not always. We could get into that, but we're not going to do it now. But I believe I went over that in one of the Big L podcasts, which is also on my YouTube channel, in which I talked about the Radical Caucus's key point of, not no particular order, in one of the Radical Caucus key points. Yeah, and D. Frank had this very insightful comment I'm going to put up here. That's why I said they're not mutually exclusive. Political campaigns are sociocultural influences. Absolutely. I know. It's that all the arguments against forming the Libertarian Party at that time I thought were pretty bad. The best argument was you have to engage in coercion to participate in politics. That was the best argument. And that's one I think every libertarian struggles with and comes up, if they stay politically active, with a way to reconcile that. I did that I know I keep referring to earlier episodes, but that's because I've done a lot of these talks. Not that I don't mind doing them again. I think I deal with how I reconciled those ideas in the episode called Why I Am a Political Anarchist and Why You Should Be One Too. All right. So now we are through with the page that I'm going to display on the screen. And again, I can't display the rest, copyright. But let me switch up the screens here a little bit because I've been playing around with another camera, and if I'm going to be going through something I'm not going to put up on the screen, let me see if I can get that to work. So we got this camera. Let me see if I can do my other one. I'm sure you guys don't mind me playing with my toys. Or if you do, oh well. I can't get it. Oh, because the scene is locked. See, I'm learning not to lock my scenes. Any of you familiar with Ecamm are just laughing right now because you probably learned all this ages ago. Here we go. Alrighty. So I do have my other camera. Aren't we professional, right? And you get to see my basement window with my snazzy pink curtains. Alrighty. These glasses are itching me. While such objections have validity, the emergence of a Libertarian Party and libertarian political influence is nevertheless desirable as part of a multi-level strategy. See, that's the key. We're not depending upon politics alone. That would be foolish. And pragmatists, or those who identify as that, because I think the term is pretty meaningless, plug your ears, because I don't want you to be triggered, but that also means that our primary objective is not just electing candidates. I know, clutch your pearls, clutch your pearls. Sorry, not sorry. These methods can be readily used to effect social change without basically abandoning libertarian values, saying exactly what D. Frank had said. It should be made quite clear at the outset that the political front should be merely one of several areas of libertarian activity and education. The importance of direct action, resistance, avoidance, education, interest groups orientation, alternative institutions, and self-liberation need not be de-emphasized nor neglected. Yuppers. And we have gotten to the point, I think, in this party where we've isolated ourselves from that, which is why a lot of the outside movements or other libertarian movements don't think very much of us. We've kind of like, we've set ourselves apart from them when we actually should be co-workers. That needs to change. The LP actually has quite a bad reputation amongst other liberty movements, and that makes me sad. For instance, the LP is not well respected in the Free State Project. I don't really know why that is, and I'm hoping that changes. I'm hoping with the Sarwarks moving up there and being so dedicated to the LP that will help to change that, but I don't know. Okay. In addition to such activities, however, it is virtually inevitable that libertarians take the initial concrete steps, both to depoliticize and liberate the individual, by traveling the historically and socially acceptable route of political action. I keep looking back to make sure I'm not missing any comments that I need to put up on the screen. I need to find a way to also have the comments in front of me here. My husband, each time he comes down to the basement, he sees I've got it set up more and more like freaking NASA. There's screens all over the place. Alrighty. Practical issues is the next title. Almost all areas of immediate practical interest to individuals, such as tax reform and repeal, civil liberties reform, the elimination of crimes without victims, conscription. Okay, you know how your eyes read ahead of you and like I don't know, your eyes see something different than was on the page. And when I went to conscription, I almost thought it said constipation. I don't know why. And I was thinking to myself, what does that have to do with anything? Oh, God, okay. Putting the economy back into the hands of a free market, isolationism, and we talked about how today we call it non-interventionism, but back then there was no shame in their game in calling it isolationism. That's what they called it then. And a lot of libertarians get mad at me, but I do think they are the same thing. Don't come for me. The loosening of control over public education, etc. Involve the legal and political process to a very high degree. While many people are working hard for such changes, some fail to realize that in the end, it will be the statesmen, the judges, the lawyers, and to some extent, the participants in the electoral process who will actually make the reforms and repeals that libertarians desire. He doesn't say it here, but there is another alternative, and it's one that I hope nobody wants. The violent revolutionaries. Those are the only two ways that these massive changes happen. Without some kind of direct representation in the political sphere, libertarians will be compelled to rely on reluctant conservatives, e.g. Goldwater, or issue-oriented liberals, e.g. Hatfield. Alrighty, so I'm going to over here to comments. And so let me see if I can put this one up on the screen here. Oh, mouse, don't make me lose you. Oh, and I went to the wrong thing. Oh, God. So here we go. So D. Frank says, I testify. Do you solemnly swear that Mike summed up the thinking of the founders in 71 and 72 accurately? And I would say this thinking, I know a lot of people, and I could name names, and I'm not going to. I like to name names in praise, not name names in criticism, though I do, but I don't like it. Some people will say, yeah, well, who cares what the founders thought? We're not bound by the dead hand of the past, type thing. But the fact is, a libertarian party only makes sense within the framework of the founders. And the fact that we haven't really dove in and wholeheartedly embraced that in the past 50 years, and there's always been these stupid fights, is my firm belief that's why we haven't been as successful as we could be. Okay, next subtitle, Libertarian Trough. What does that mean? At first I thought it was a misprint that it should say thought, but no, it's trough, as in what cows eat out of, or pigs. The idea is not that in the reasonably near future we will have libertarians in Congress, rather that we can have an adequately vocal political party which is consistently pushing and publicizing libertarian ideology and programs. Politicians are noted for accommodating groups who pose significant threats to their continued place at the public trough. Got it. That's what they were getting at. And the existence of a consistent party of principle. That's been the problem, hasn't it? When it comes to these lockdowns, what have we been? What have I said? We've been the party of principle. All righty. And for those listening and not watching, I put that in scare quotes. Furthermore, the educational value of even having a Libertarian Party label on the ballot would probably evoke more curiosity as to what it stands for than would 1,000 literature tables on 1,000 campuses. Exactly right. It's free advertising. I am going to go off on a little bit of a rabbit trail here. There's always a debate in the party as to whether you should have only serious candidates or whether line holders are okay. A line holder is like a paper candidate. They just put their name on the ballot to have a Libertarian candidate on the ballot. I'm a firm believer in line holders, and I know that just triggered half of the people listening. But I'm going to tell you why. I used to be opposed. And within the course of an hour, Joe Johnson changed my mind. In Colorado, we have some of the easiest ballot access laws in the country. So consequently, we can put a Libertarian on every ballot line, and it really just costs us nothing. In partisan races, no petitioning, nothing. You just put your name down. It's really that easy. In certain nonpartisan races, you have to petition. But everybody does. But that's, and it's, the petitions are really, really minimal. Okay. So, with that in mind, the way Joe Johnson explained it was, think of yourselves more as a business with a certain consumer base. And think of yourself as, say, an up-and-coming burger chain. Wouldn't you love to have your name in front of all your potential consumers? Who are the consumers that we're marketing to? Voters. Any burger joint would kill to have their name guaranteed to be before every single one of their potential consumer market. That's what a ballot is. It's free advertising. Well, nothing's really free. I mean, the taxpayers are paying for it, but they're going to pay for it whether our name's on there or not. So that right there convinced me. Because if you want to get people to even look into the Libertarian Party, there's something in advertising, and people will dispute what the number is. Some people will call it the rule of sevens. The company's name or the product needs to be before someone's eyes 7 times before it even registers. Some people will say it's 20. Whatever it is, you need to get before the eyes of people. I mean, it's just basic marketing. And we don't have that much money. So getting it for free, what a deal. So yeah, definitely. And just going to look at the comments here. And maybe I can put those on the screen. So, well, they're not going to see the old ones. While I'm doing this, I'm going to put up the chat on the screen. So that way, why isn't it coming up? It says show in all scenes. I'm going to try that. Huh. Here it comes. Okay. You see that big blue bar there? And when new messages come up, they'll come up on the screen. I'd like everyone to be able to see all the comments. Yeah, so in comments so far. Oh, some good comments. I'm going to put these on the screen. Let me just get my mouse over there. I've got to scroll up. 1 second. Here we go. This is a good point. Is the U.S. Constitution considered the dead hands of the past? Some progressives would say so. But that is, that's a good point. Darren says, isolationist isn't really accurate. That would mean to me no trade. And you're getting hidden here a little bit, so I'm going to read no trade either. I think non-interventionist more accurately describes the current Libertarian Party. Maybe today isolationists might have that implication, but they certainly didn't take it that way, because in the same breath they were arguing for removal of all trade barriers. So, at least in the context that this was in, I do think they're the same. But the word sounds more negative, and non-interventionist is more of a positive spin. And, Darren says he agrees with placeholder. And as does D. Frank. D. Frank had said, more candidates as long as the party name is printed on the state monopoly ballot. Yep. Okay. Back to the article. But now things will come up here on the screen. Next subtitle, Magnet. In addition to the general strategic advantages, working in the political sphere would serve as a tangible magnet for both energy and financial resources, which could then be channeled, in a socially acceptable manner and with some means of assessing the feedback. As perverted as it seems, it is far more palatable to hand the citizen some campaign literature about candidate blats with platform XYZ than to hand someone a pamphlet which explains the evils and perils of government. Because it is an institution of sorts, a political party can serve as an acceptable outlet for activism and an effective inlet for money. People feel more secure about donating time and money to a political party than to a free-floating philosophical group with erudite goals, esoteric ambitions that nobody understands, and radically new methods for attaining social change. A political party with frequent local and national elections and publicity can serve as a tolerable and effective tool for activism. Excellent, excellent, excellent points. Oh my God, this is going to trigger people. I'm telling you right now. Moderates and progs, go into your safe place. Do whatever you need to do to soothe yourself, because what's coming up, you're not going to like. It should be stressed at this point that the primary purpose of a libertarian political party would not be to have libertarians elected into office. Do I have a mic to drop? But now I'm going to say something that'll make them feel a little better. Although that would be, well, no, actually this won't make them feel better because he's kind of saying wink, wink. Although that would be the ostensible goal, like saying, yeah, we'll kind of say that, but it really isn't. I'll take that to mean that is the eventual goal after societal change has already been effected. Because remember, I do agree with the critics that politics is a lagging indicator of social change that already took place. The present likelihood of such an occurrence on even a local level is minute. While actual political success should be welcomed when it does come, absolutely. The initial results of a libertarian political activity would be primarily educational. With opportunity for equal time and public debate, the dissemination of a consistent set of libertarian proposals, such as is currently embodied in the temporary Libertarian Party platform, and the interaction with large numbers of people, the educational effect of such a major undertaking would be enormous. All right. Now, what's ironic is this battle that has always happened. What's our primary purpose? We're a political party. That's what political parties do. We should only be about electing candidates. Party was not formed that way. Sorry to tell you that. Sorry, not sorry. But here's the thing. If that battle didn't start so early and the party had focused on the educational change for like the first consistently 20 years, we would be electing libertarians now. That internal turmoil and the push-pull is what's made us not effective. My opinion, if we stopped all that crap right now and concentrated for 20 years on the initial purpose of going about it the counterintuitive way, in 20 years, we could have a libertarian president. And I know people don't want to look at long term, but we're so far gone, unless you want a violent revolution, it's long term. But we won't do that. We have only ourselves to blame for not having a libertarian society right now. Don't come for me, that's my opinion. Bureaucracy. Worries about organizational bureaucracy and political opportunism are indeed areas of concern, especially in light of past experiences by many libertarians. Oop, I lost my spot. Getting old here. Also to be considered is the fact that initial efforts will be centered around such things as qualifying the party for the state ballot and raising filing fees. That still is. It should also be stressed that libertarians who bear antagonisms against voluntary types of organizations, such as political parties, are in effect contradicting their own principles. Bingo! Since, after all, it is a voluntary organization that libertarians are trying to extend into all facets of society. Now, I am now skipping over because I don't want to read a whole, article. So I'm giving you now the main points because he is, I think, just expanding out and repeating himself a little bit. Alrighty, so the next subheading, Women's Freedom Path. Says the idea then is not to sweep the world toward a libertarian philosophy. The idea is to focus enough attention on that philosophy to generate popular acceptance and public tolerance. Politics is an effective tool to bring this about. Alrighty, let me find where he's analogizing it to the women's movement. I don't really see where he really does. Oh, here he goes. The success of the new feminist movement, as opposed to old suffragists, lies in having attracted attention to and generated acceptance for their ideals. Again, because politics is a lagging indicator of social change. Perfect. And then next subtitle, Right Time, ? Ernstberger's arguments against libertarian political activity seem unconvincing. We're going to get to what D. Frank had also said. The fact that political change reflects socio-intellectual change overlooks the very important fact that socio-intellectual climate has changed. To the extent that there is a small but growing segment of society which does accept basic libertarian principles and premises, but who have no socially acceptable outlet with which to act. Yeah, that is a good argument, and that's one I haven't made, but that is a really, really good one. To those who feel it's too early to initiate a political front, it's tempting to ask, when will be the correct time? What's the magic signal? 100,000 libertarians? 1 million? If it is the individual that matters, why should a question be quantitative? Hoisting them on their own petard, I see. If current political activity often attracts superficial followers, it is only a reflection of the kind of intellectual foundations most of this country's political parties rest on. Prematurely to condemn libertarian political activity as being intellectually meaningless is to miss the point of initiating libertarian political activity. Very good. Next title, Left Actions. To maintain that the political arena is an ineffective place to conduct educational efforts is to misjudge both the nature of political process and the intelligence of the authoritarian left. Both the Communist Party and the Socialist Workers' Party have long maintained small political parties primarily as convenient vehicles for their educational activities. Given the generally limited resources of these radical groups, one would be seriously underestimating the intelligence of these groups to maintain that they have been wasting their time by pushing their views through political activism. Interesting. So, tactical, small radical. He's almost arguing for Fabianism. And I actually think Fabianism is a very effective way of moving the Overton window. Okay, next title, and again, summarizing here. Incompatibilities. Finally, to reject political activism on the basis that libertarian principles are incompatible with the basic nature of political activity is to admit ignorance about the purpose of libertarian political activism. The power politics of the major parties necessarily involves compromise and consensus because the object of these groups is to maximize their influence over national and local governments and hence the people of the United States. On the other hand, the explicit goals of libertarian political activity are anti-political in nature. It is an attempt to use the political process to minimize the effects of that process. That's the same conclusion I had come to. It may well be the case that most effective means of limiting the scope of government interference with individual liberties will be the tactic of destruction from within the political process itself. I said it differently, but I've also said, what do I see political anarchists as? I see them as viruses inserted into the mainframe of the political system. So, continuing, let me see if he says anything new here. He does a really great point here. If one contends that libertarian political involvement will ultimately be anti-libertarian in practice, it can only be said that such a position then precludes the existence of any kind of libertarian society, i.e., no libertarian society is possible if libertarians cannot be trusted to stick by their principles. And if this view is taken, only some kind of external process, revolution, or a mysterious withering away of the state is possible to bring about libertarian change. Exactly. Exactly. So, and here's his conclusion, and I will read this. A road to free society. The method of moving society towards a more rational direction will have to occur on many levels and by many different means. The road to a free society is not a narrow one. To maintain that any particular way is the only way and that all other approaches are worthless is to maintain a rigid, dogmatic, and ultimately anti-libertarian attitude. While the use of the political process carries its own particular set of advantages, this method does not preclude or de-emphasize the importance of any of the other methods for change. In fact, the intended result of libertarian political activity will be to emphasize the fundamental problem of any kind of political activity, the rule of men by men. Libertarians should work for the day when the political means of conducting relationships among men living in society will be reduced to its ultimate minimum level. But by any future projections, the era of libertarianism remains a distant goal. As one who is interested in improving the present social climate, I maintain that political activity of some kind seems the most promising method of attaining meaningful change. The basic fact that individual human effort does determine the course of future social direction must never be neglected. The important thing for any libertarian to realize is that without some kind of effective individual effort, the kind of society libertarians visualize will never become real. Political activity can be one means of obtaining that goal. Rather than condemning that method out of hand as ineffective, libertarians should allow experience and reality to be the ultimate judges of successful pro-life activity. And they didn't mean pro-life then. Remember, this is even before Roe versus Wade was legalized, so don't get all triggered by that. Alrighty. I don't know what this poem is he has at the end here, but it's called The Purist. Though they used purist differently then. They used purist as the people who were too pure to vote. But so here is the little poem. The Purist. I'm going to read some poetry to you. Lewd, chuckling behind me, paused. My entrance for a glance. At a frumpy, dog-faced woman who knew the value of a ticket. Film commission, said she to usher number 3, and flashed a red pass as she pushed ahead of others who waited for the skinny flick. Plopping into her seat, she snickered to her companion about the fun in store. That's actually good. Okay, that is that for that article out of the May 1972 issue of Reason. Okay, so let me try to switch this camera back if I can figure that out. Here we go, but I want full screen, but you got all kinds of chats all over the place here. I'll have to open a new window to do that. Give me just one moment. I opened a window, but now I need to get me up here. Here we go. Okay. So, I hope you found that interesting. And let's see if there is any further comments here that I need to address. Need to scroll down a bit. Yep, let me put this up here. I agree here. So D. Frank says that the LP has far surpassed all other alternative parties with votes is quantitative proof of its social intellectual influence. Educational. Absolutely agree. Okay. Well, that's it for this installment episode. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about history. I hope it made you want to learn more and, helps ultimately enhance your libertarian activity, right? We're not doing this to be navel-gazing. We're doing this to be effective. So, that will be it. You want to know something? I'm going to have to ask y'all's help. Everyone has their little vocal things that they use. I'm trying to get away from saying so much, and I've been successful at that, and I figured out what I'm using in place of now is so. I would kill you all if you had a drinking game. You'd die of alcohol poisoning if you had to drink every time I said so. I almost said it again. Please help me stop that. So that's it for today. Have an awesome holiday. And if you are gathering with family, gather with family in peace. If you're not, your business. And coming up, possibly Friday, because I need to get really caught up with these LP news, we'll probably go on to June, if I can. So, I did the so. Oh my God. You know what I need to do is have a drinking game where I need to drink every time I said so. And that would learn me. I almost said so again. Have a good night. I truly appreciate you. If you will tolerate me to do one thing, maybe you won't, but here we go. Please, if you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, even if you're on Facebook, please go to YouTube. Please subscribe and like. Sharing is nice as well, but subscribing and liking does drive my stats, which recommends this video to more people. Also, I know everyone is hurting in the time of COVID. Totally get it. I said because I couldn't say so. I am really, really trying to devote more time to liberty, education, and activism. So if you can and you enjoy my content, please become a patron. We libertarians believe in voluntary contributions to things we support. If you can, I would truly, truly appreciate it. There is bonus content for patrons. Right now, we're going through the book. We're starting it, at least. I didn't bring it down here with me. It's Judge Gray's latest book. I had held it up, and my old brain right now is forgetting the title. But that's what we're going through, and we'll be doing a lot of books, and some of the more obscure books that I might have in my collection that you guys might not be aware of, because I've been collecting a lot of rare things for a while now, and it's not necessarily LP things. It's things that I search through booksellers and things like that to find. So please, if you can, I'm begging you. And let me tell you, after my first really getting into doing these things again, I closed my screen and I had an email that I had a subscriber. And I cannot tell you how thrilled I was over that. It's the last one I got. So at least I'm glad I got the encouragement right away, because it's so easy to be discouraged. It is so easy to be discouraged. But anyway, and I didn't say so, I will see you guys probably Friday. Look for the announcement. And let's go through the closing process. Ciao.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people